Have you ever been stuck in that frustrating situation where someone you trusted or cared about just won't admit their fault, no matter how obvious it is? You feel anger rising, maybe even betrayal. It's like talking to a wall, right? But here's the thing, fighting harder isn't the answer. In today's video, I'll show you exactly what you need to do when someone doesn't admit their fault. And trust me, these strategies will save you time, energy, and even relationships. Stay with me until the end, because the last point might just be a total game changer for you. But before we dive in, if you want to learn how to handle life's toughest situations with confidence and strength, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Your journey to mastering these moments starts now. Let's get into it. 1. Don't push for admission. Picture this. You're in the middle of a heated discussion. The facts are crystal clear, the mistake is undeniable, and yet the other person just won't admit they're wrong. Frustrating, isn't it? Your gut reaction might be to raise your voice, present more evidence, or even corner them into saying, "Yes, I was wrong." But let me ask you, how often does that actually work? Here's the brutal truth. The harder you push, the more resistance you'll face. It's human nature. People hate admitting their mistakes because it feels like an attack on their identity. The more you demand that admission, the more they'll dig in their heels, like a fortress under siege. It's not just about the mistake anymore. It becomes about their pride, their ego, and their need to defend themselves at all costs. So what do? Step back and ask yourself a critical question. What do I really want from this situation? Is it a simple apology, or is it a resolution, an understanding that moves both of you forward? Sometimes we get so caught up in wanting to hear the words, "I'm sorry," that we forget the bigger picture. Now, here's the real power move. Do nothing. That's right. Silence can be your greatest weapon. When someone denies their fault, let it hang in the air. Don't try to fill the silence with more arguments or explanations. Instead, stay calm, composed, and collected. Your silence will do what your words cannot. Why is this so effective? Because silence makes people uncomfortable. It forces them to sit with their denial, to reflect on their actions without the distraction of a heated back and forth. And in that moment, whether they admit it or not, they know. They know the truth, and sometimes that unspoken acknowledgement is more powerful than any verbal confession. Imagine this scenario. Someone denies breaking a promise. Instead of shouting, you calmly say, "All right, if that's what you believe," and then you walk away. Do you know what happens next? They're left alone with their guilt, their conscience gnawing at them like a storm they can't escape. It's not weakness to walk away. It's a calculated move that shows you're in control. Remember, you don't need someone's admission of fault to validate the truth. The truth stands on its own. Your peace, your energy, and your growth are far more important than forcing someone to say, "I was wrong." Stay calm, let their denial speak for itself, and focus on what truly matters, the resolution, not the confession. Second, shift the focus to understanding, not winning. Now, let's get real for a second. Have you ever noticed how people react when they feel accused or attacked? The walls go up, the defensiveness kicks in, and suddenly the conversation turns into a battlefield. And here's the thing, when someone feels judged, they're not thinking about admitting their fault. They're thinking about survival. Most of us approach these situations like it's a contest. I have to prove you wrong, and I have to win. But let me tell you something that will completely shift your mindset. You don't have to win the argument to win the moment. Let me repeat that. You don't have to win the argument to win the moment. When someone refuses to admit their fault, it's often because they feel threatened. Maybe they're afraid of looking weak, or maybe they think admitting their mistake will cost them respect. Whatever the reason, their denial is a defense mechanism, and the more you push, the stronger that defense becomes. So how do you break through that wall? You stop trying to win. Instead, you shift the focus to understanding. Imagine saying this in the middle of an argument: "Help me understand your side." Those 6 words are like a secret key that unlocks the door to dialogue. Why? Because they do the opposite of what the other person expects. Instead of challenging them, you're inviting them to explain. You're showing curiosity instead of judgment. And here's the magic of this approach: it disarms them. It takes the heat out of the conversation and creates a safe space where they can open up. Let's say you're in a disagreement with a friend who refuses to admit they hurt your feelings. Instead of saying, "You're wrong for what you did," you say, "Can you help me understand why you said that?" Notice the difference. The first approach puts them on the defensive. The second one invites them to share their perspective. And when people feel heard, they're more likely to let their guard down and see things from your point of view. Now let me be clear. This doesn't mean you're excusing their behavior. It doesn't mean you're letting them off the hook. What you're doing is creating a bridge instead of a barrier. And that bridge can lead to something far more valuable than winning. It can lead to resolution, understanding, and even growth in your relationship. Think about this. What's more powerful, forcing someone into admitting their fault or having them willingly reflect on their actions? The latter is where true change happens, and it starts with you being brave enough to say, "Help me understand." So next time you're in a conflict, remember, winning the argument isn't the goal. Winning the moment is. And you do that by choosing understanding over ego, dialogue over judgment. Trust me, this shift will not only change how others respond to you, it'll change how you handle every tough conversation in your life. 3. Lead by example. Here's a hard truth that many people struggle to accept. If you want someone to own up to their mistakes, you have to be willing to do it first. Sounds simple, right? But think about it. How often do we expect others to show accountability while we ourselves shy away from admitting when we've messed up? Let me paint a picture for you. You're in the middle of a conflict, and the other person is refusing to acknowledge their fault. The tension is thick, and it feels like a dead end. Most people would double down, point fingers, or try to win the blame game. But what if you did something radical instead? What if you broke the cycle by owning up to one of your own mistakes, even if it's unrelated? Imagine saying something like this: "You know, I've been thinking about how I handled a situation a while back, and I realize I could have done better. I just wanted to apologize for that." Can you feel the shift in energy already? What you're doing here is setting the tone for maturity. You're showing the other person that accountability isn't a weakness, it's a strength. Now let me explain why this works on such a deep level. When you admit your own faults, you take the pressure off the other person. Instead of feeling attacked or cornered, they see that accountability isn't about shame or blame, it's about growth. And here's the kicker: accountability is contagious. When you lead by example, it becomes much harder for the other person to stay in denial. Why? Because you've just raised the bar. Think about this. Have you ever been in a conversation where someone unexpectedly apologized to you? How did it make you feel? Most likely it caught you off guard in the best way possible. It probably made you respect them more, maybe even reflect on your own actions. That's the power of vulnerability. It disarms defenses and opens the door to genuine connection. But let me take it a step further. Owning up to your mistakes isn't just about influencing others. It's about freeing yourself. When you take responsibility for your actions, you're no longer weighed down by guilt or the fear of being called out. You're standing in your truth, and that truth is unshakable. So the next time someone refuses to admit their fault, try this. Pause, reflect, and think of a time when you've made a mistake, big or small. Then lead by example. Say, "I've been where you are, and I know it's not easy. But here's what I learned when I admitted my own faults." Not only does this humanize the conversation, but it also shows that growth is possible, even in the toughest situations. And here's the extreme part. Leading by example isn't just about fixing one conflict. It's about creating a ripple effect in every relationship you have. When you show accountability, you inspire others to do the same, whether it's your friends, family, or co-workers. You're building a culture of trust, honesty, and growth, starting with yourself. So be the first to take that step. Be the first to say, "I was wrong, and I'm sorry." It's not just a powerful move, it's a transformational one. And when you lead by example, you're not just solving one conflict, you're showing others how to live with integrity. And that, my friends, is what true leadership looks like. 4. Set boundaries and protect your energy. There's a moment in every conflict where you realize this isn't going anywhere. No matter how clear the facts are, no matter how calm you've been, the other person is simply not ready to take responsibility. It's frustrating, isn't it? You feel the urge to keep trying, to say one more thing, to explain it in a different way, thinking, maybe this time they'll get it. But let me tell you something most people don't want to hear. Not every battle is worth fighting. Now, I know that sounds harsh. We're taught to resolve conflicts, to fix relationships, to try harder. But here's the extreme truth. Your energy is your most valuable asset, and not everyone deserves it. When someone refuses to admit their fault, and it's clear they're unwilling to change, you have to ask yourself, at what cost am I holding on to this argument? My peace, my mental health, my time? These are questions that demand honest answers, because the reality is, every second you spend engaging with someone who won't take accountability is a second you're losing to negativity. This is where boundaries come in. Boundaries aren't about building walls to keep people out. They're about creating a safe space where you can thrive. Setting a boundary might look like saying, "I'm not willing to continue this conversation if it's not productive." Or it could mean physically walking away when things escalate. Yes, walking away. It's not weakness, it's strength. It's saying, "I value my peace too much to let this drain me." Now, let's talk about why this is so powerful. When you set boundaries, you're sending a clear message. Not just to the other person, but to yourself. You're saying, "I respect myself enough to protect my energy." You're taking control of the situation instead of letting it control you. And let me tell you, that's a game changer. But here's where it gets extreme. Walking away doesn't just protect your peace. It forces the other person to confront the consequences of their denial. When you disengage, they no longer have your attention as a distraction. They're left to sit with their actions, their words, and their denial. And sometimes that silence speaks louder than anything you could have said. Think of it this way. If you're arguing with someone who refuses to admit their fault, you're essentially pouring water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much effort you put in, the bucket will never be full. At some point, you have to stop, step back, and realize you're wasting your time. Setting boundaries isn't about giving up on people. It's about prioritizing yourself. It's about recognizing that you can't force someone to change, but you can choose how much access they have to you. And that choice, that's where your power lies. Imagine this. You're in a toxic conversation, and instead of getting drawn into the negativity, you say, "I've said what I needed to say, and I'm done." Then you walk away. The other person might feel frustrated, but you feel lighter, freer, in control. That's the kind of strength that comes from knowing your worth. So here's my challenge to you. The next time you're in a situation where someone refuses to admit their fault, ask yourself, is this worth my energy? If the answer is no, set your boundary and protect your peace. It's not running away, it's choosing yourself. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with your head held high and your heart intact. 5. Learn to let go. Let's be honest. Closure is something we all crave. When someone refuses to admit their fault, it feels like an open wound. You replay the conversation in your head, thinking about what you could have said differently. You wonder if there's still a way to make them see the truth. But here's a lesson that can change your life. Not everyone will admit their faults, and that's okay. I know what you're thinking. How can it be okay? How can I just let it go when I know they're wrong? The truth is, holding on to the need for closure only keeps you trapped. It ties you to their denial, their refusal to grow, and their unwillingness to see the bigger picture. And that weight, that constant replaying of events in your mind, it's exhausting. Here's the hard truth. Closure doesn't always come from them. Sometimes it comes from you. Let me repeat that. Closure is something you give to yourself, not something you wait for someone else to provide. Picture this. You're holding a heavy stone, and that stone represents your frustration, your disappointment, and your need for them to admit their fault. The longer you hold it, the heavier it feels. But here's the thing. You have the power to put it down. You don't need their permission. You don't need their apology. You just need to decide that your peace is worth more than holding on to that weight. So how do you do it? Start by acknowledging your feelings. Write them down, talk to someone you trust, or simply sit with them. Don't push them away. Let them flow through you. And then, when you're ready, make a conscious choice to let go. This doesn't mean you're excusing their behavior or pretending it didn't hurt. It means you're choosing freedom over frustration. Think about it. Every moment you spend waiting for someone to admit their fault is a moment you're not living your life. It's a moment you're giving away to their denial. And for what? To hear them say, "I was wrong." Even if they did, would it erase the pain or undo what's already been done? Probably not. But when you let go, when you stop seeking validation from their admission, you reclaim your power. Now, let's make this extreme. Letting go isn't just about moving on from one conflict. It's about changing the way you live your life. It's about choosing to prioritize your growth, your happiness, and your peace above all else. Imagine how much lighter you'd feel if you stopped carrying the weight of other people's mistakes. Imagine how much more energy you'd have for the things that truly matter, your goals, your passions, your loved ones. And here's the beauty of letting go. It's not about them. It's not about what they did or didn't do. It's about you. It's about saying, "I deserve better than to hold on to this pain." It's about creating space for joy, for growth, for healing. So the next time someone refuses to admit their fault, take a deep breath and ask yourself, is holding on to this worth my peace? If the answer is no, let it go, write it down, close the book, and walk away with a sense of peace that only comes from within. Because at the end of the day, their denial is their problem, not yours. And when you choose to let go, you're not just freeing yourself from their denial, you're stepping into a life that's lighter, brighter, and completely your own. And that, my friend, is a weight worth lifting. So the next time you're faced with someone who refuses to admit their fault, remember, your power doesn't lie in forcing them to admit it. Your power lies in how you handle yourself. Choose peace, choose wisdom, and choose growth over conflict. If this video resonated with you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need it. And let me know in the comments, how do you handle situations like these? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.